Let me know if you see my screen.
Nakikita na po siya.
All right. Good morning. So for week 14, it's about the damage assessment and damage control. Okay, so this is our topic for this week, week 14. So there are cases that our vessel will encounter, such as the following: a collision or grounding and or punctured, okay, after being grounded, something like that. We don't want it to happen, but uh, we should be ready. Whatever the scenario is or the situation is, we should be ready. Okay, and with that, we have to discuss or learn what is damage assessment and control. So damage survey and countermeasures after a collision accident by ships. How to prevent further damage. Let me just move this downwards. Kaya ba? Okay. So when a ship gets collided with another ship or makes contact, damage to a terminal structure, the ultimate cause of damage repair plus loss of cargo and environmental damage due to oil spill can run into millions of dollars. Loss of lives and or crew injury adds more financial burden onto or against the ship owner. Okay, it's not just against the master or the seafarers on board, but the ship owner. Okay. Unfortunately, collision accidents at sea occur not only in a dense traffic congested area or due to restricted visibility or machinery equipment failure and similar incidents, but a significant amount of incidents happening at open sea with clear visibility. So even in good weather or good visibility, accidents can occur. Recent Protection and Indemnity Club report published on some major casualties suggests that substandard bridge procedure, human error, lack of situational awareness were the root cause in many collision incidences or incidents. Ladies and gentlemen, with bridge navigational watch, actually what comes first with our duty is the situational awareness. It's not about the proper operation of your radar, looking onto your radar for a couple of minutes or looking on your ECDIS, okay, which shows you only the chart features. No, it's your visual lookout. No, it's the situational awareness wherever you are. Not even in congested traffic, but also in open waters accidents or incidents happen. So most of commonly underlying causes being reported as follows. Insufficient watch keeping, meaning there's a lack of bridge watch condition. Supposedly it is a bridge watch condition 3, but then there were only 2 officers on board and 1 helmsman. So it's just condition 2. So that's just an example. Lack of situational awareness, you always look on your radar, but you don't look on your horizon in good visibility or a lesser visibility but not restricted. So dapat you should look on the horizon, no? You don't stick your eyes on your radar or on your PPI. 3 is the failure to set priorities, lack of positive action, meaning there's not enough action or not ample time given. And positive action means you with that action it should result in a good situation, okay, and not in another close quarter situation. Number 4 is the preoccupation with administrative tasks, meaning tawag ng tawag si kapitan and giving you orders, do this, do that, but those were just documents, preparations, which is supposedly you were keeping a watch on the bridge, but no, you were doing some job, okay, given by probably the ship owners, the vessel managers, due to betting preparations or whatsoever. Number 5 is the failure to communicate intentions. Okay, you fail to communicate with the pilot, the master pilot information exchange. You fail to report, being the OW to the master or to the pilot. So something like that. Okay, communication barrier. 6 is the lack of assertiveness, failure to challenge incorrect decisions. For example, the pilot ordered hard port, wherein supposedly the vessel should swing to starboard. So with that, you should interfere. Okay, you intervene with the orders, helm orders given. Number 7 is the failure to comply with standard procedures and international regulations, meaning those standard procedures stated in your company's safety management system and international regulations, of course, with SOLAS, MLC, with MARPOL, okay, with STCW. Those are the international regulations. Failure to utilize available data and resources. Okay. For example, maneuvering characteristics data, the pilot card, and you did not utilize it properly. Meaning, for example, with the overhead clearance, supposedly you were passing under the bridge, you did not calculate properly, and then the bridge reached the top mast of the bridge, reached the under part of the uh, crossing bridge. Okay. Back to number 7, failure to comply with international regulations. Mainly, that is all about the 14 chapters of the safety of life at sea. For example, if you are the FFE, the LSA, the construction and equipments, uh, the carriage of dangerous goods, the IBC code, the IMDG code, the INF code, the LNG code, okay, the ISM code, bulk carriers codes, containers and grain code, high-speed craft code for the vessels operating in polar waters. So those standard or international regulations stated therein. For example, with the procedures with the ODME, all discharge monitoring equipment, discharge of Annex 1 or Annex 2, the MARPOL Annex 1 to 6, the air pollution, the garbage, sewage, harmful substance, noxious liquid substance, and oil. So those are the things, okay? Lastly, number 9, lack of training or human technology interface, meaning DOW or the person on duty or in charge is not adept with the operations of the technology. So nowadays, more on computerized na tayo. Even with the safety management system, some companies, even including mine, have already what do you call this, shifted to digital. Okay, digital recording, digital SMS, and everything. Okay, and also digital operation of the ship. You can switch to manual or autopilot or even auto steerage. Meron yun, no? Satellite compasses instead of gyro compass. You also have your satellite compass. So those are just examples. So how to handle collision incidents and safeguard owners' interests. Collision is a big issue. A prudent shipmaster should apply his best judgment and careful consideration to minimize damages and financial loss to the ship owner. After a collision, immediately draws the attention of other ships that are in adjacent waters by turning on deck lights, putting out lights or shape objects to show not under command using VHF and other possible means. Meaning to say, on this slide, you should know the part C. Okay, what is part C of call regs? The lights and shapes. For example, not under command. What are those lights? Or what are those shapes? Constrained by her draft, restricted in her ability to maneuver, fishing vessel, trolling vessel, other than trolling vessel, sailing vessels. Okay, you should know those lights and shapes in order for you to be able to determine what are those targets. Okay, is it a pair trolling? Should I pass in between them or should I avoid them too? Okay, is it a towing vessel more than 200 meters? What are its lights? What are its shapes? How do I identify them? Why do I have to identify them? It's because they give you risk of collision or having those towing lines or the trolling lines eaten by your propeller. Next, prevention of further damage. To minimize the impact of damage, consider to go astern as early as possible. It is to limit the damage and to avoid further contract. However, if the bow of the vessel has penetrated the side shell of the other vessel, Reversing the engine only after initial damage as much as one of the vessels may suddenly lose her buoyancy and sink, or cause or increase oil pollution. Meaning to say, if you have already collided with the other vessel and have punctured the side of the other vessel, and if you go astern, okay, it will just sink the other vessel instead. Because of course, knowing the bulbous bow has the greatest strength of the whole part of the vessel. Nakadesign talaga yun na pang panghawi ng waves or even the pang collision, okay? So pag tinanggal mo yun, the buoyancy of the other vessel, remember the meta center, the gravity, the buoyancy, and the keel, okay? The righting arm or the righting force will be negative, okay? And that vessel will be capsized or even sink. So damage survey and measures against flooding. Number one, these are the procedures. Survey the degree of damages of the hull by sounding its bolded, sounding all compartments likely to be affected by the collision. Limit any flooding by using available means on board, meaning gagamit ka ng sounding equipment or sounding stick. When you say sounding, there is what we call allage and then the inage. Allage spelled as uniform Lima Lima Alpha Golf Echo. Write it down. That is the space or the measurement from the surface of the water or from the oil going to the top of the tank. Okay, top of the tank. Well, the inage or the sounding, inage is India, November, November, Alpha, Golf, Echo. Also known as the sounding. Of course, it's the measurement at the top of the water going to the bottom of the tank. Okay? So, inage and allage, yun yung difference. Number two, if the leakage is small, wooden plugs, blankets, tarpaulins, cement boxes, or the like can be used to reduce the flooding rate. Meaning you're going to plug something on the hole kapag maliit lang. Okay? Number three, an increase in the draft due to flooding can cause a flooding through openings that are usually above water lines, to which serious attention must be given. So, for example, if the whole hull is quite lower, no, or somewhere in the middle part of the tank or the ballast tank, no, on the sides, you can just increase your draft by deballasting. Okay, if you deballast more, the vessel will be more afloat. Okay, with that, yung punctured hole, okay, ay hindi na aabutin ng waves. Probably waves will reach, but then hindi na in and out. There's no progressive flooding that occur kasi we are avoiding the progressive flooding. 4. If the high rate flooding is likely to cause the vessel to sink, an intentional stranding should be considered. Okay? So, pwede nating intentionally grounding or beaching para hindi lumubog yung barko. Number 5, if leakage occurs in the forepeak tank, proceed with reduced speed so that excessive pressure in the collision bulkhead is kept to a minimum and move the vessel to safer waters. Ballast aft tanks if possible to regain freeboard forward. You know what is freeboard? It's the space between the water line going to the deck. Okay? Going to the deck. It's the opposite of your draft. Okay? Yung kanina, we were talking about the allage and the inage. For freeboard, we're talking about the drafts and then the freeboard. Salvage contract and evacuation, there's what we call the contract, okay, and evacuation. Follow the company's instructions to conclude a salvage contract for which communication must be established between the company and the vessel as soon as possible after the accident. So there's what we call the emergency procedures, okay, for this. So when there's an imminent danger and absolutely no time to wait for the company's decision, the master may request salvage using his professional judgment. Okay, it's the master's discretion. However, under the company's procedures, we have to communicate with the ship owner first. Kasi our company is mostly provided with the salvagers. Okay? Meron na tayong mga salvagers. Yung mga companies na yan, meron na silang mga hinire na mga insurers. okay, or the salvage contractors. In this case, the master must confirm that the contract is based on the Lloyd's open form or the LOF, even at the worst case, and avoid having the salvers start the operation without confirming the conditions of the contract. If danger is imminent to human lives on board the vessel, every effort should be made to evacuate everyone from the vessel. The master should request the salvage by all available means before the evacuation to show that the vessel site has no intention to abandon the hull and cargo. Now let's go to life saving and rescue of other ship. Okay, if we will be the one to rescue the other ship. Number one, if there's no urgent danger to own vessel, stay near to the other ship to take all necessary measures to save human lives and assist in possible rescue attempt of the other vessel. Number two, if the other vessel has sunk or is likely to sink, do the very best to save human lives immediately by lowering lifeboats, rescue boats, or other possible means, even life rafts, life buoys, etc. Number three, it is unavoidable to discontinue the search, although there are still persons reported missing in action from the other ships. Obtain the consent of the other ship or the Rescue Coordinating Center or the MRCC. Enter the fact in the deck logbook. Okay, for example, there are men overboard that were not rescued, okay, or unaccounted for. Number four, handling an accident resulting in injury or death of the vessel's crew should be dealt with mentioned in the emergency procedures for human casualty. Okay, so it should also be included with the emergency procedures of your future company. Now, let's handle oil spills. In handling oil spills, if the accident is likely to cause obstruction to marine traffic, the master should report the matter to the nearest office of the Maritime Safety Agency or the nearest Coast Guard or port control. So with oil spills, of course, you are damaging the marine environment. And with that, there should be a plan on board. If you are, there's what we call the SOPEP or the Shipboard Oil Pollution Emergency Plan. If you are carrying oil cargoes, or if it's annexed to cargoes or those noxious liquid substance, it is under the Annex 2 of MARPOL. Preserving damage claim right, an Admiralty Court or arbitrator decides the liability of parties involved based on a marine accident investigation report. An error in navigation, negligence, or failure to comply with call regs would be scrutinized in an accident report. The claim letter should be sent swiftly by a ship agent or by any available route, including electronic means. If the other ship sends a claim letter to the vessel, near insert or accept a wording that may be interpreted as an admission of liability. If it is unavoidable to sign the claim letter from the other ship, sign the document affixing the following remarks. I receive your claim notice without prejudice. And this is not an admission of liability or similar wording. Okay, so these words, ladies and gentlemen, if that happens, and if you are the master and someone sends you the claim letter, so you should always write, no? Parang sa letter of protest to. Because we're talking about legal matters already. Open quote, I receive your claim notice without prejudice, or this is not an admission of liability or similar wording. Okay, close. So, ganun, no? You always have to include those words. Now, let's go with the investigation and recording the facts. The master shall investigate the event by interviewing all persons concerned and try to establish all facts leading up to the event. The master should convene a meeting to collect all types of information from crew members to grasp the fact of the collision, which should be consistent with the evidential records or documents on board. The following documentation records shall be secured. Time records of course recorder, echo sounder, printer records, main engine, telegraph records, kasi lahat ng yon may mga printers. So with that, those records and even the deck logbook, okay, will be taken for investigation. Time of records of telegraph logger, position records coming from GPS, yun nga sinabi ko, engine revolution records, voyage data recorder or the VDR, or what we call the black box of the vessel. This data, okay, we can extract the playback, okay? Yung ECDIS, it is capable of recording the data. Other documentary evidence, those logbooks that I mentioned, and master should make records after investigation of the above and prepare extracts of the respective logbooks. Now, let's go with the dealing with visitors. First persons concerned, such as the officer of competent authorities, surveyors, lawyers, and underwriters, visit the vessel to probe conditions of the collision. In such cases, the master should give the gangway strict instructions not to permit access to anybody until he authorizes him explicitly. The master should not admit any person except competent authorities or persons permitted by the company. If there is a doubt of visitor's authorization to board the vessel, the company should be contacted before access is granted. So, meaning to say you have to control your visitors. You do not just admit, okay, persons coming on board your vessel without approval from your company. So, gangway watchmen should not should not allow the entry of those persona non grata. When any crew member is questioned about the accident by competent authorities in a port outside Japan, the master should request a lawyer representing the company and an interpreter if possible. The company will arrange such representatives to allow the required time for the necessary arrangement. The master must inform the management company as early as possible after it's known that such an inquiry will be made. For an accident related to protection and indemnity matters, a local PNI representative should be arranged. So with this matter, it refers to the communication barrier. So with that, the master or the company should hire an interpreter and a lawyer who knows how to speak Japanese or Chinese or whatever language is practiced on that local place. The master should not permit interviews by a lawyer or surveyor nominated by the opposing vessel without permission of the company. So I've already discussed this one. When instructions for an interview are given from the company, due care should be taken not to give statements that may be unfavorable to the vessel or the company. Such interviews should be limited to the master and OW, especially logbooks, records, by no means to be shown to oiler, surveyor, nominated by the opposing vessel. So you shouldn't give records against. No? So kung sino yung bumangga sa'yo, hindi ka dapat magbigay ng any documents or evidence or information against your own vessel. Here are the corrosions and preparations of documents. Okay, the following attention will be given for entry into the deck logbook. Write the plain fact and mention points favorable to the vessel in detail. Each OW shall make entry in his own handwriting. Check the uniformity of logging with engine logbook. Following attention should be given for entry into the C protest or letter of protest. Write the fact briefly. Details of the development of the event are not necessary. Not to write definite time and place, but enter approximate time and place only. Cause and detailed condition of the collision should not be entered, but write matters which are positive and favorable to the vessel. Navigation after a collision. For a collision during a voyage, the company will decide how to handle the matter depending on the extent of the damage, including temporary repairs by the crew or if required with assistance from external sources. Requirement for inspection by the class or the classification society. This is just abbreviated, gentlemen and ladies. Number 3, proceeding to the nearest port for repairs or going to the dry dock. Number 4, navigation to the port of destination. Okay, and number 5, arrangement of salvage or towing if necessary. Master should survey the extent of damage condition as detailed as possible to judge whether there are any obstructions to continued navigation and report immediately to the company. The vessel should follow instructions given by local authorities. If SOLAS-related equipment such as LSAs, FFPs are damaged, inform the company immediately. The vessel should not leave a port until the damaged equipment is repaired by an authorized person or replaced. Arrangement of survey. The management company needs to arrange surveys. Ano-ano yung mga surveys na yan? Those are classifications, society survey, the damage survey, the joint survey with the opponent party, P&I representatives, or the protection and indemnity party, yun yung insurer, as required after consultation with the insurance company. Number two, where the vessel is in a foreign port, the management company should arrange necessary surveys, divers, and others through local representatives or agents. So there will be a submarine inspection. Okay, somebody will have to divers inspection yung under ng hull mo if grounding or collision has happened. Overall yun, no? The whole hull, it will be surveyed. Number three, in case of an independent accident on the high seas, for example, a collision with a floating object causing deformation of shell plating or similar damages, the master must survey the hull as carefully as possible and report to the company ASAP. The company will discuss the situation with the classification society in question and discuss the further handling of the situation. A classification society surveyor must probably would visit the vessel at the next port of call to assess the extent of the damage. He may impose a condition of class with time limits for immediate damage and repair. If satisfied with the present situation, he may allow the ship to continue sailing with temporary repair with condition to repair permanent at next scheduled dry dock. Number four, in case of an accident involving liability problems between the opposing parties, for example, a collision accident with another ship, the degree, extent of damage of each ship must be confirmed, which generally requires surveys by fair and neutral organizations. Securing seaworthiness. You cannot call your ship seaworthy if your hull is damaged. Okay? As a general rule, the seaworthiness is lost by damage opening the hull, dented or buckled inner strand members, or a dent on the hull 50 millimeters or more in depth. Therefore, a seaworthiness certificate, okay, there's a certificate, is essential to obtain from a classification society surveyor. When the vessel enters a port after a collision, it must be done before departure from port. Remember, classification society, yun yung mga DNB or the Net North Veritas or LR or the Lloyd's Register, Marshall Islands, okay? Iba-iba, no? Maraming classification society. After a damage survey, if the certificate is furnished on the condition that the damage should be repaired upon arrival, try to have the surveyor revise the expression of the certificate, the damage to be resurveyed upon arrival in port, and recommendations for necessary repairs. Since the port in the next voyage schedule may not have sufficient capacity for the required repairs, in all such cases, the shipmaster should seek guidance from the company's superintendent. Ship's collision accident handling checklist. So there's what we call a checklist after collision. As the global number of commercial ships continues to grow, seas are becoming more and more congested. Although there have been many advancements in navigation technology in recent years, collision at sea is still a considerable concern. It is especially true in busy traffic areas like Singapore Strait, Dover Strait, East Coast of China. Navigating congested waterways, ship watch-keeping officers must understand practical procedures to avoid collision guided by the call regs. So these are the checklists. Handling merchant ship collision is all indicative and not exhaustive, and one must always be guided. Prepare a record in time series or in a chronological manner. Number two, exact time and position of the vessel. Number three is the positions of watchmen before the collision, on the bridge and at the bow. Number four, nav lights, fog signals, okay, the VHF. Number five, the use of your steering gear, engine, bow thruster. Number six. Number seven, movement after that. Number eight, the time, direction, distance, and appearance of the time when the opponent ship hazard light was recognized the first time. 9, actions of vessel including the course, maneuvering signals, etc. 10, the headings, okay, which part of the hull. 11, weather, sea conditions, visibility, tidal currents, time of collision. 12, under pilotage, was it? And bridge personnel, who are those? 13, description of radar settings. 14, degree of damage. 15, measures taken after collision. 16, eyewitness. Any photos or videos, CCTVs. 17, other vessels name, witness, collision, their approximate positions. So those are just examples, okay? But with your actual checklist on board, depending on your company, it depende kung ano yung susundan mo. At yun yung susundan mo kasi yun yung profile or the procedures ng inyong company. And then with that, you have to submit the claim notice on the other vessel or the opponent vessel. Okay, damage survey by the vessel hands and emergency measures, survey collision damage, sound tanks and bilges, flooding, watertight doors, start discharging operation, breakage. So those are the things, okay? Damage survey. In serious flooding in engine room, use the bilge pump. Number 5, isolate, of course, cargo, fuel, ballast pipeline sources to the affected area of the vessel. Syempre, you have to isolate, okay? Number 6, breakage of the above water lines. Take waterproofing measures against sea spray. Number 7, breakage of the forepeak tank. Adjust the speed so that excessive pressure will not be applied to the collision bulkhead. 8, consider filling the opposite end tank. 9, flooding rate will discharging rate capacity is higher. Consider possibility of loss of buoyancy. Again, you have to consider the stability and trim.